Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, max out your savings. The more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free home delivery on any smart bed with base. Limited time. Check it out at a Sleep Number store near you or at sleepnumber.com today.
AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. I caught my headphone wire there. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Relief Windows. I'm Matt.
Love you, Matt.
Paul O'Neill.
They're chanting Paul O'Neill's name.
Muso. And Mr. Toby Tomplay. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. LSU lost. The Saints. Oh, what are we talking? Give me a break. Brian Kelly got fired. Let's begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
For 4 years, you have heard me repeat a phrase. So many times you could probably finish it for me. For better or worse, Brian Kelly and LSU are bound together for a decade. I have said that over and over and over and over again. So many times. That's what happens when you give a coach a 10-year, $95 million contract with 90% of it guaranteed. You are financially bound together, so you have to make it work, for better or worse. Until you decide there's no making it work. And apparently, that's where LSU arrived on Sunday morning. I have said so many times that LSU not firing Brian Kelly. On this show, other people's shows, every platform. And it's not some deeply rooted opinion that I held. It's what was told to me over and over and over and over again by the people who write checks and who hire and fire at LSU. The fact that this happened so quickly is stunning. And I'm going to go through how it happened, why it happened, and where they go from here and all that stuff. But to illustrate how surprising this is, I had a conversation this morning, Monday morning, with a very, very prominent LSU booster. Trust me when I tell you, you won't guess who it is, by the way. You would not guess who this is. And this person told me, this isn't me saying it, this is someone who writes checks, who said, if you would have told me at kickoff of the Texas A&M game that Brian Kelly was going to be fired the next day, I would have said, no way, would have never believed it. We don't have that kind of money. This is someone who writes checks, told me that today. This feels so reactionary. And the ripple effects are going to be massive. But it's done. And we'll talk about how it happened and why it happened and all that sort of stuff and how they move on. So let me kind of fill you in a little bit on how this all transpired, okay? And we broke the story at LouisianaSports.net. I got a call on Sunday, little before noon, that Brian Kelly was being fired. Obviously, you got to get that right, and you have to make sure that it's really happening and done. But the events that set forth on Sunday were very dramatic and evolving throughout the day because of the many different people that got involved. But ultimately, as I understand it, what happened is as the Texas A&M game was unfolding, and it went as badly as it did, where you had a team that in the second half, with your season, for all intents and purposes, your championship hopes on the line, laid down and got whipped. The crowd emptied out. Those who stayed booed. You had players leave the field. Only a few stayed for the alma mater. Kelly, who had left, had to come back out for the alma mater, then went back in, got booed again. It was bad. Ugly all the way around. And during that scene, conversations started to be had to take temperature among boosters who might be willing to contribute to a buyout. And while that started on Saturday night into Sunday morning, what became clear is that more and more people who were asked, Brian Kelly didn't have any allies. And that maybe would end up being his undoing at LSU, is that he didn't work hard enough to gain the favor of the people who were making these types of, who had influence in these types of decisions. And so when you get to a very ugly situation, like what happened on Saturday night, the conversation wasn't, should we make staff changes and see if that might help for the remainder of the season? It was, no, it's you. And he had no allies. So a couple of things that you've heard, read, that I'll clarify. There was a report that there was a contentious conversation with Brian Kelly and Scott Woodward where he was told he needed to fire assistants, and then he said he wasn't going to do that. It became contentious. I can tell you that did not happen. From people in the room, what I was told from people in the room was it was a very cordial conversation. It lasted probably about 5 minutes. Basically, it was expressed that Brian Kelly had lost support and they were going in a different direction. He accepted that decision, left, and then at a later time in the afternoon, early afternoon, Brian Kelly's agent, Trace Armstrong, engaged in the conversations about the buyout. There's been other reports on Monday that they have agreed to a lessened buyout. I can tell you that is not true, that Brian Kelly and LSU, their representations, have not yet agreed to a lessened buyout. On Sunday night at 5 o'clock, the governor, members of the Board of Supervisors, and key boosters had a meeting at the governor's mansion to discuss the buyout possibilities and who would be the interim head coach. You may ask, why is the governor involved? I'll get to that later. Just accept that that's a thing that happened. You don't have a university president at this time. You have an interim president, so there's some power struggle here. But as of now, there is no resolution on a buyout, so Brian Kelly will continue being paid what he's paid presently, which is approximately $800,000 a month. They're just going to continue paying him until and unless they come to some agreement on a buyout. At 8 o'clock on Sunday night, there was a meeting to inform the team. Scott Woodward spoke, introduced Brian Kelly, who was allowed to speak to the team, and then Frank Wilson spoke. I'm told from people inside that room that it was somber, but that all three men did a great job conveying their message to the team. So if this was so dramatic, then why did it happen? And if I could boil down, y'all, I've spent more time on the phone, like talking on the phone in the last 30 hours than I have probably in the last year collectively. And if I could boil all of these conversations down, the feeling simply was that Brian Kelly lost the team. And when you lose the team, you can't get it back. So I would look and say, is this an overreaction to one game? And my feeling is yes. If you were that adamantly opposed to spending $54 million to buy out a coach, and one game goes so terribly wrong, and you make the decision you're going to turn on a dime, that feels like an overreaction. But part of me looks at it and says, this was an all-in season. This was all in. I've said that a million times here. You're all in. Nussmeier returned. Garrett Nussmeier's making close to $3 million this year. You're all in with your fifth-year senior quarterback. You went all in the portal. You went to your boosters, to your fans, and begged them to fund your collective. Brian Kelly himself put up $1 million of his own money, to his credit. No one's going to mention that. But you went to your benefactors and said, we need buy-in the collective to go buy this roster. And they delivered. And your roster costs $18 million. Brian Kelly's words on the record, not mine, not my guess, not my reporting information. Brian Kelly said it on the record, $18 million. Okay. You went all in, and with 2 losses already on the docket, and your championship season hopes, fleeting as they might have been, on the line, that's the performance you give? The feeling was you lost the team. So could you have fired assistant coaches? Could you have fired Joe Sloan, fired Brad Davis, shuffled the staff for the final month? Maybe. But is that going to make you better? Are you going to be better in the final month? Or are you just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? And these are the conversations they had. And then you start to look and say, okay, well, let's say you rearrange the staff, but you go into an off season after a very disappointing season. Can you go back to the same people that helped you fund this roster and ask them to do it again for this coach? And there was far less confidence in that. So would you be better a year from now? And the answer is probably no. So the decision was made. And Frank Wilson's promoted to the interim head coach. And there's a lot of reasons why that's the obvious choice. First, Frank has head coaching experience. He was the head coach at UTSA and at McNeese, so he's been a head coach before. And Frank is beloved. When you have a locker room that is fractured, where if they had lost confidence in the coach, the staff, whatever the case may be, and remember, in the NIL era, coach is fired, players can enter the transfer portal. There's a very real question of, can you keep this roster together for the final month of the season? Or do they start leaving? Opting out? Like, that's a possibility. Well, how do you prevent that from happening? This is a good way. A coach that they all love saying, come on, follow me. Let's play hard for the final month of the season. And then on top of that, Frank is your recruiting coordinator. So you're trying to keep together the 2026 recruiting class as well. And your recruiting coordinator is now the head coach who can say, sit tight. Let's get through this. Makes a lot of sense. Glad Frank's on staff for something just like this. And then the question becomes about who's next. And this is maybe the most fascinating part of this whole thing. Because as one high-level person told me yesterday, when you add together Brian Kelly's buyout, what it will cost to buy out his staff, what it will likely cost to hire a new head coach, and the new head coach's staff, all in, this is going to be about $100 to $115 million exercise to transition staff to staff. $115 million. Are you really going to go hire another $100 million coach? Because let me tell you straight up, you want to go get Lane Kiffin? You want to go get Dan Lanning? Guess what it's going to cost? Another $100 million guaranteed contract. You ready for that? So that's the question you have to answer now. Can you afford, after this, to go do it again? But the other side of the coin is, can you afford not to? Because at LSU, everyone demands excellence and championships. Can you take a risk going bargain shopping because of this financial albatross that's now going to be around your neck through 2031? I don't have to answer that question. The powers that be will. I have some thoughts, and we'll talk plenty about it. But maybe the question isn't, can you afford another $100 million coach? It's, can you afford not to pay another $100 million coach? What a time. Brian Kelly fired. LSU goes into their open date. Team does. They're off today. Frank Wilson having staff meetings today. The team is back together on Tuesday for the first time. They'll make it through their open date. Staff changes as well. By now, I'm sure you've heard Joe Sloan's been fired. Alex Atkins will call the plays. So we've got a ton to get to throughout the entire course of the show today. We'll hear plenty of reaction nationally. We'll get yours as well. Email us, tweet us, text us, 225-396-4400, 396-4400. Show Open Every Day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Might have had me actually, you know what? I think I've earned an ice cold Bud Light tonight. Probably have a few of those. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light. All right, let me knock out a quick break, y'all. We come back. This is a one-topic day. We're only talking about Kelly today and everything there in all angles. When we come back, I'll go into more detail about the buyout and the money and all the finances. Stay here at AFR.
After further review.
We're brought to you by Duplessis Builders. DuplessisBuilders.net is the website. Hey, look, if you're thinking of building a pool, maybe it's always been a dream of yours to walk into your backyard and have that outdoor oasis. Duplessis Builders can make it happen. Moscona can't afford a pool. Yeah, you can. Hey, look, Duplessis will build you the big, beautiful, custom resort-style swimming pool. And you can see pictures of their beautiful work. You want that beautiful custom pool, they do that. And they offer you a 10-year workmanship warranty, by the way. But they also have options. If you go to the website, there's a Pick Your Pool tab on the homepage. They have pre-designed options for you as low as $49K. And financing is available as well. You can have that beautiful pool in your backyard, and Duplessis Builders can make it happen. DuplessisBuilders.net.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and oh, we do shutters too.
That's out of my hands. It's impossible for the head coach that's been here, for 4 years and 35 years of doing this to think anything else but this is my responsibility and we've got to get it turned around. And that's not my decision in terms of whether I'm here or not, but that's what I will do as a head coach that's been doing it for over 3 decades. When things are not going well from a football standpoint, the head football coach has to be agile enough and able to make those changes.
This is Brian Kelly after LSU's loss to Texas A&M on Saturday. I've been asked a bunch, hey, if there was no buyout, would you want to fire Brian Kelly? And it's a very fair question. And I don't know that I have a great answer to that because part of me looks at programs like let me give you Florida for instance. Florida is a program. The two in the SEC that are probably the most glaring examples of this are Florida and Auburn. Programs that just churn through coaches. And as a result, they struggle to find stability. So I'm not saying there's a good, bad, right, wrong. I think there are different ways to go about this process. And I look at Florida and I say, okay, well, you had Dan Mullen, who won for you, but maybe just didn't win enough, and so you fire him. Or go back to Jim McElwain. Jim McElwain won the East his first 2 years at Florida. Midway through year 3, they fired him because people just didn't like it. He was winning, but they didn't like it. You bring in Dan Mullen, and it was similar. Mullen won, he just didn't win enough. And then you make another change and you bring in Billy Napier. And now in year 4, you fired Billy Napier. Like, you just keep churning through coaches, it's hard to ever establish stability or culture, any of those types of things. So that's why I tend to believe, like, give people the resources they need to have success, build a foundation, and build upon it. Expecting a run like Nick Saban had at Alabama is unrealistic. What LSU has done over the last 25 years, however, is be, by and large, an 8-9 win football team that occasionally will pop a big one. You win a title in 2003. You win a title in 2007 despite losing 2 games. You were back in the title game in 2011. You had a really good roster in 2016, but it fell apart unless he got fired. You win a title in 2019. You had the great offense in 2023, but we know what happened defensively. You see my point? Like, LSU, by and large, is a team that wins 8 or 9 games a year, and about every half decade pops a big one. And that's okay, because being a team that goes 10-2, 11-1 every year, unless you're Nick Saban in Alabama, is not realistic. So I'm more inclined to say, like, give me stability. So, like, am I okay with firing Brian Kelly? Not really. Like, $54 million to buy out a coach in year 4. And again, it may be proven that this is the best decision. Maybe they nail the next hire and the next guy's awesome and all that. But this reeks of a very impulsive decision that is going to be so consequential. And I want to be very clear as we start talking about the buyout, which is reportedly in the $53, $54 million range. And I'm going to go through this and why it's important. But the first thing I think that is so important for people to know, the state of Louisiana is not paying Brian Kelly's buyout. So a lot of people want to talk. I know this happens all the time. People talk about optics and with the government shut down. None of that has anything to do with Brian Kelly's buyout. Brian Kelly, his salary paid by the LSU athletic department is $400,000 a year. That's his salary. The other 9.1 mil, whatever it is, that's paid through TAF, okay? Through donor dollars. So please understand this. Do not tell me the state doesn't have roads and we can't pay teachers and you're going to pay a coach $50 million to not work. No, the very rich, generous people who give money to LSU are taking money out of their bank accounts and giving it to LSU to give Brian Kelly to go away. If you have a problem with that, go yell at the very rich, generous people who are donating money to LSU. But as I tell you all the time, I don't want someone telling me how to spend my money, so I'm not going to tell other people how to spend theirs. If people have millions of dollars they want to commit to paying a man to not work, God bless you, you do you. But please do not come at me today with any notion of, well, the optics are bad because the state is not paying Brian Kelly $1. They're not. The state of Louisiana is not paying Brian Kelly not to work, okay? I'll tell you sort of how this is structured. So Brian Kelly's contract, which I did look at a week ago, he is paid approximately $800,000 per month, right? So he had the 10-year, $95 million deal. It's equal installments. So if you just look at roughly 10 years, 12 months a year, 120 months, you take $95 million divided by 120 months, that gives you the monthly installment that Brian Kelly would be paid over the life of the contract through December of 2031. Okay, so he's got 6 more years on the deal. The buyout does not have a lump sum. That's a good thing. For example, Mark Stoops at Kentucky, this is a big sticking point there. His buyout after the season is $40 million, but it is all due in full, paid in full within 60 days of his termination. So if Kentucky wants to fire Mark Stoops, they got to come up with $40 million, boom, to make him go away within 60 days. That's much more challenging than saying, you know what, we're already paying Brian Kelly $800K a month. We're going to keep paying him $800K a month for the next 6 years, which is effectively where LSU is. Also, there is mitigation in his contract. What that means is if he gets another job, his buyout is offset by that number. So I don't know if Brian Kelly's going to coach again. I got an email in my inbox today, which were the betting odds for Brian Kelly's next coaching job. For example, I'll look at this right now. It's his next coaching job. Arkansas is 3-1. How about that? Arkansas, UCLA, Virginia Tech, Stanford, Oklahoma State, UNLV. I don't know if he'll coach again. I don't know. I don't know that Brian Kelly loves this era of college football, and he may go the Nick Saban route and go do TV. But the mitigation does extend to a media deal, meaning if Brian Kelly gets a TV contract, a job doing TV or media, whatever he's paid to do that job, his buyout is lessened by that amount. So there's some mitigation in there, which is a good thing. There has been also this conversation about a settlement. Would Brian Kelly accept a lesser amount for his contract? And that was presented, as I'm told, to Brian Kelly and his agent on Sunday. A lump sum settlement of his deal. Would you take a lump sum now, a lesser amount lump sum? And he declined. So faced with a $54 million buyout, the governor, the board of supervisors, and a group of very influential boosters met at 5 o'clock on Sunday at the governor's mansion to discuss this, the buyout. Did Scott Woodward have the authority to fire Brian Kelly, to pay him this, to agree to this buyout, all that sort of stuff, and what they would do with the buyout? And what they agreed to is effectively, we're not going to do anything. Just keep paying Brian Kelly the $800K per month per his contract right now, and they can discuss and negotiate whatever that buyout settlement terms may look like at a future date. But they're moving forward as a program. They'll keep paying Brian Kelly, but they have not agreed to a settlement. I know there was a report on Monday that they had agreed to a settlement of a lesser sum. I can tell you that is not true. There, as of right now, Monday, there has not been an agreement between Brian Kelly and LSU on a settlement. That has not happened. So, and Ross Dellinger reported that maybe weeks, months, and it may be weeks or months. They'll cross that bridge at a future time, and I think a lot of that will have the governor's involvement as a new university president is going to be hired, and new board members as seats turn over, and there will be a trickle-down effect through all of that as it's involved. But I think there's another key part of this, and I want to discuss it. I need to break so I stay on time. So let me knock out a break. I want to come back. I want to discuss what I think is the other key part of most of you and I. We don't. Brian Kelly's money is his money, and rich people are going to pay that buyout. It doesn't affect you and me. But to what degree it affects the LSU program is what I want to discuss. And we'll do that when we come back at AFR.
AFR.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan, injury attorneys. You've been injured in an accident. It's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Get Gordon and get it done. Of course, love telling you about Gordon, not only the great work that he does, he and his staff and his team of attorneys representing injured people in our state, but also the many ways they give back. On December the 11th, I'm excited about it. We got a little ways, but I'll be doing AFR at Gordon's office because that's the day they're going to be doing their bicycle giveaway. Every year around the holidays, Gordon does a big bike giveaway where he gives away bicycles to less fortunate children in all the different cities across the state that they represent. And just another way of the many ways that Gordon and his family and their office gives back to the less fortunate in our communities. They love giving back to the communities they serve, as Gordon often says, that have given him and his family so much. So, love telling you about Gordon and all the things they do. And, of course, if you've been injured in an accident and it's not your fault, you know what to do. Go to getgordon.com, getgordon.com. Get Gordon and get it done.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. And oh, we do shutters too.
I got a text from Lane on the text line. Any timetable on the hire of a president and new AD? I will. The new AD part, I think we need to clarify is speculative, and that's going to throw a lot of people off when they hear that. And I do want to talk about Scott Woodward, his future at LSU, and I'm going to do that in 1 hour. So at the bottom of hour number 2, this whole day is going to be discussing everything about Brian Kelly's firing, the program, who's next, all the finances, all of it. So just buckle up and hang out with us all day. If you have to leave, come back. You can catch us on YouTube, on the Watch 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel, WBTR. Of course, Baton Rouge, Alexandria, Lafayette, Lake Charles, just podcast. Appreciate everybody for being. If you're with us on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're there for the first time. But the question about the president, the new president, is a good one. And there is, of course, a presidential search committee. And this is all public record, by the way. If you go to the LSU website, the Board of Supervisors website, you can pull this up, Paul, thank you. There's a search committee website. It says who's on the committee. There's the agendas, the meeting schedule. There's a meeting scheduled for later this week. And then there's another one in November, at which point this committee, this presidential search committee, will have to make their recommendation. So guessing you will have a new president. You at least know who the new president is, who the recommendation is for the new LSU president next month, sometime in November. So to put it this way, before the football season is over, you will know who the new president of LSU is. I think is a safe and realistic assumption. And why that matters, of course, is because the athletic director reports to the president of the university. And then, of course, if you're wondering how the governor is all tied into this, the president of the university will be approved by the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors, members of the board, are appointed by the governor. So when the next board member's term off, Governor Landry will appoint the newest members, and at that point, he will have a majority of the board members appointed under his leadership. So they will effectively enact what he wants, if that makes sense. So the governor has a lot of say in all of how this is going to go down. But before we went to break, I mentioned that with respect to Brian Kelly's buyout, I think there is a very important thing to keep in mind, that you and I, who aren't going to write checks to help pay Brian Kelly's buyout, but who care very much about LSU, the university, the football program, athletics, all of it, will be interested in. Make no mistake, the college football world and agents who represent coaches are watching how are watching how LSU handles the Brian Kelly buyout situation. The number of phone calls in the last 24 hours, coaches, agents, boosters, admins, like everyone in the country wants to know what's happening here. Like, we all think of LSU as a very prominent job. We're all very proud of LSU, and we think of it in those terms. But it's true. Like, it's not just our opinion because we live here, love the school, went there, whatever the case may be. LSU is a top 10, maybe top 5 job in the country. It gets in that conversation. And so people are going to be interested to see how LSU handles this, because we're at a very pivotal point in college football. In this era, this NIL, rev share, transfer portal era, everyone has seen their expenses go up because of the money you have to spend on your roster. So everyone is looking right now at all these coaches' contracts and the buyouts. And this year is going to be an extreme example. Like, Jimbo's $76 million buyout at Texas A&M forever has been that scarlet letter. But now you have Penn State paying nearly $50 million to buy out James Franklin. You have Florida with Billy Napier. Now you have LSU paying north of $50 for Brian Kelly. And it's a cautionary tale for how these contracts are done. But the other part of this that's important is, if you sign a coach to a deal like this, $100 million with the guaranteed money, with the buyout, 95% of it guaranteed, and on the back end, it goes awry, and then you try to finagle your way out of paying that buyout, that could be a very poor reflection on your athletic department. So I understand that there's a meeting on Sunday night at the governor's mansion with the governor and the board and boosters, all trying to discuss ways potentially around or how to manage this very significant buyout that Brian Kelly has. Do you fundraise the 54? Do you continue to pay $800K a month for the duration of it? Do you negotiate a lesser settlement amount? Some of you have asked, and I don't mind saying that there have been whispers of maybe attempting to exercise the for-cause component of Brian Kelly's contract, which would nullify the buyout. I don't believe that would happen, but maybe that could be used as leverage to get him to negotiate a lesser number. But all of that said, that might save you money on this deal. But what message is that sending to the college football, to the next coach? Because I'm going to tell you straight up, if you think you're going to go hire Lane Kiffin, if you think you're going to go hire Dan Lanning and get those guys to leave their very, very stable, solid situations to come take your job, and if you think you're going to get them to take that job for anything less than a $100 million contract with all the same guarantees you gave Brian Kelly, you're high. Why would Lane Kiffin leave his job where he's got a roster that's probably going to make I'd be stunned if they didn't make the playoff this year. Why would he take your job without guarantees? Why would Dan Lanning leave Oregon without the same guarantees you just gave Brian Kelly? And if what you show to the college football world and the agents that represent these coaches is, oh, we'll sign you to the deal, but on the back end, we're not going to negotiate in good faith. We're going to try to weasel our way out of paying the buyout if it goes sideways. That's why I think it is so important to be fair and ethical in business and in these conversations. The bottom line is, regardless of what happened with Brian Kelly at the end, it went badly. I get it. You gave him that contract. You went to Brian Kelly, who could have stayed at Notre Dame for the remainder of his career. Could have. But the way you got him to leave South Bend was by guaranteeing him $100 million. $95 million. 10 years, $95 million. 9.5 per year. That's how you got him to leave South Bend. You made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So, honor that agreement. You were the one who made the decision to fire him. He didn't walk away. You fired him. He's lost 3 games, lost 3 of the last 4. The last one was embarrassing. You could say lost the locker room, all that stuff, and I'm not disagreeing with any of that. Saturday night was hideous. Hideous. But you gave the man a contract. Honor the contract you gave him. That would be my opinion, my advice. As much as that's going to hurt financially, it could potentially hurt even more when you go to make future hires if you get the reputation of not negotiating in good faith and not willing to honor the contract that you offered this coach, that you signed with this coach 4 years ago because it didn't work out. Well, that's your fault. You're the one who gave him the $95 million contract with 90% of it guaranteed. Own it. You have to do right by Brian Kelly. You gave him the contract, and unless you want this to affect your ability to sign future marquee coaches, you have to honor this deal. All right, it's after further review. We got a ton to do today, y'all. We're brought to you by First South Farm Credit, firstsouthland.com, firstsouthland.com. Thinking of buying land? Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. Doesn't matter if it's 1,000 acres for agriculture. Maybe you live in New Orleans and you're thinking, God, I'd love to maybe live the rural lifestyle but continue to work in the city. This happens so much. People will call First South Farm Credit. They got an office right there in a meet. You want to live in Tangipahoa Parish. You can buy your land on the North Shore, live, enjoy that rural lifestyle, drive across the causeway, work in the city. So many people choose that option. Maybe in Baton Rouge, you want to move up to St. Francisville, buy that 20, 50, 100-acre plot of land, build your big, beautiful home, and then drive into the city. You could do that. And First South Farm Credit can make it happen. Maybe you want that recreational property. Tired of sharing your hunting property, your hunting lease. Get your own. First South Farm Credit can make it happen. Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthland.com, FirstSouthland.com for First South Farm Credit. All right, y'all, it's after further review. We're glad you're aboard with us here on a busy day. It's a one-topic day. We're talking all things LSU and Brian Kelly. So if you want to weigh in, and look, It's one of those things we were talking before the show. On a different day, we're talking about Tyler Shuck, replacing Spencer Rattler. We're talking about an embarrassing loss to Texas A&M, so many different things. But LSU fires a coach. Something that happens about, once every 5 years or so around here. We're going to talk about it in every angle. So we'll continue with the reaction to Brian Kelly being fired. Peter Burns is going to join us. He's the only guest today. We have Peter every Monday at the SEC Network. Love to get the SEC reaction from Peter. We'll do that coming up here in about 15 minutes. We're glad you're hanging out on AFR.
AFR.
GLO. GlowResources.com. GlowResources.com. Glow Resources, they are complete employer solutions. I always say complete employer solutions. Actually, their slogan used to be complete employee solutions. They changed it because you realize at Glow Resources, they don't work for the employee. They work for the employer. They work for you, the business owner, you, the HR manager, you, the operations manager, the hiring manager, whoever in that business is responsible for finding the right people to make your business more efficient. Doesn't matter what type of business it is. Maybe it's an accounting firm. Maybe you're an engineering firm. Maybe you're a media company, a law firm. Doesn't matter. If you need skilled blue-collar labor, any type of office job, from office assistants to C-level management, Glow Resources has the expertise and the network to find the right employee, the permanent solution for your business. So if you're struggling in the rat race of finding the right people and you need help, you need Glow Resources. GLO, glowresources.com, complete employer solutions.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. And we do shutters too.
Second down, goal to goal. The ball placed just inside the A&M 7. Shotgun snap. The give to Berry. Trying to go left side. Berry got a seam into the end zone. Touchdown, Fighting Tigers.
Little did we know that would be as good as it got. Harlem Berry, the freshman, scoring on Saturday night against Texas A&M. I know no one's really interested in recapping that game, and I don't blame you. But the reason I bring that up, there was a text. You can always text the show, by the way, 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. I do want to take the opportunity to explain also. That text, that's an app that I pay for. It's called Community. It allows you to text me. That's an app on my phone that I pay for where you can text me anytime, and I can in turn text you back. So some choose to interact one-on-one, and a lot of times whenever there's breaking news, I send it through that text app. So if you're interested, it's free for you. I pay for it, but it's just another way to have a communication source, and I use it here on the show. Anyway, Daniel said, I'm sure you'll get to talking about it, but my big concern with the firing is how it shakes up the upcoming recruiting class, especially with how strong 2027 is. Yes, so I think that is a valid concern, Daniel. I think it's a big reason why Frank Wilson was chosen as the interim coach, as your recruiting coordinator, to try to keep this, not only the roster presently, but the future recruiting classes in place. Listen, you lose a coach, there's always going to be attrition. It is 100%, 100% of the time a coach is fired, there's attrition. Guys on the current team that leave, recruits that flip, it is a 100% certainty that it will happen. What you want to do is minimize it. Well, how do you do that? Well, Frank Wilson is certainly a guy that could help keep that together right now. And in a sort of odd twist, on the day where all of this is happening, where Brian Kelly was fired a day ago, Joe Sloan has been fired. LSU actually picked up a commitment today from Kervin Johnson. He's a wide receiver out of Tioga. So, I mean, not all bad, I guess, in that respect. But so much of this keeping the roster together is going to depend on who the next coach is, right? Everyone's going to want to see who's coming in, what style of play will there be. But we played the Harlem Berry soundbite coming out because I think that is actually the bigger question here is roster retention. Because remember, when a coach is fired, players on that roster can enter the transfer portal. So when you look at a player like Harlem Berry, who had a great performance on Saturday in his first start. I mean, he was averaging 7 yards a carry in the first half and then had one rushing attempt in the second half. Part of the reason I'm sure why Joe Sloan is no longer employed. We'll talk more about that later. But the point being, it is very important to retain your current roster. Because you better believe in this culture of college football, while another school can't contact the player, every school has representatives and every player has agents, and those third parties can communicate. And you better believe that's happening right now to see who's available. The vultures are out. So it's imperative for Frank Wilson and his coaching staff to keep this team together, this roster together, not only for the remainder of the season, for the final month, but for whatever and whoever will be next in 2026 and beyond. All right, it's after further review. We are brought to you by Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Gents, if you're thinking of popping the question, make sure you get by Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. For 40 years now, Lee Michaels has helped Louisianians get engaged. We're getting close to the holiday season. Thrill her with a gift in the red box. Maybe it's an anniversary, maybe it's a birthday, maybe it's a promotion, any great event to celebrate. Celebrate it with a beautiful piece of jewelry in the red box from Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. lmfj.com. Okay, y'all. Peter Burns of the SEC Network is coming up next. Stay with us here on this.
AFR.
All right. Peter Burns of the SEC Network is coming up here in just a smidge right after SportsCenter, which we'll get to in a second. We're brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake, championship health partner of LSU Athletics. OLOLRMC.com/LSU. OLOLRMC.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU together, we roar. Of course, Our Lady of the Lake is not only the championship health partner of LSU Athletics, taking care of student athletes, but also with the Student Health Center contract. Our Lady of the Lake physicians take care of the LSU students and everyday champions like you and me. As a matter of fact, I've told you before, I'm a member of the Our Lady of the Lake Men's Health Group. Dr. Kurt Chastain is my primary care physician. Our buddy Chris Marler, who works with us at Louisiana Sports and Ed, just moved to Louisiana. He said, I don't have a doctor, I need a physician. Got any recommendation? I said, yeah. Our Lady of the Lake. OLOLRMC.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar.